wave energy.
Whenever I'm at one of these presentations where the news is grim, I always like to leave with 2 or 3 things you can do, and I'm sure on that list would be contact your local representative. But when I do that, I always feel like I'm preaching to the choir because I'm pretty much okay with what they're doing. So how do we tell the Republicans, wherever they are? I mean, I know it's probably inappropriate to call somebody in a district that isn't your own, but do you have suggestions for organizations or ways that we could make our concerns felt to the crowd that isn't on our side?
Yeah, excellent question. The conventional wisdom is always pick up the phone and call your legislator. And I don't mind getting the calls, that's fine, but I always feel like, gee, poor constituent, that's such a waste of time because I'm already there. And I've even had to call different lobbyists for different organizations and say, call off your members. I'm 110% behind them. If they don't stop calling, I might have to think something differently. Because it's really a waste of your time to do that. So there's 2 words of advice I have. One is work through your associations. That is, by far where the strongest voice comes from. And make sure, particularly that with this governor, that you're targeting the governor. And it's probably going to be true of other governors too, but he's the only governor I've ever worked with, unfortunately. Looking forward to a new opportunity. But the other thing is something that the local Democrats have started to understand, not just here but other places. The more progressive communities have to reach out to those of like mind living in the less progressive communities. And so within your organization, you've got people living in other counties. Modoc County, who has a Republican representative. I think adding your voice and helping those folks talk to their representatives probably makes you stronger. I was kind of laughing at tongue-in-cheek saying that, don't call my office in huge numbers. I do like knowing, though, that people are behind me. That's really important because sometimes you can feel like you're getting outvoted and outspoken in the Capitol, and knowing that there's that strength in numbers behind me really is very helpful.
Can I follow up? Do you count it when you get email?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Emails, phone calls, faxes, people coming in the office, and I always get a tally of the number of people that have called in on a particular issue. We like to know, do you live in the district, do you live somewhere else, that kind of thing.
My question goes back to funding for education. I know recently the budget cuts have hit all 3 systems of higher education in California. However, it seems that the community colleges are consistently hit harder and far worse than the other 2, and here we are representing millions of students versus thousands of students, and generally the students who are in the lower socioeconomic classes and things like that, that even if they had the opportunity, would not be able to go to a UC or CSU simply because of their own personal funding issues. So what can we do to help lobby to kind of switch that around and make it more proportionate to the student base versus the quote-unquote prestige of the system?
And it goes actually beyond dollars too, because what we've done is we've shut down admissions in CSU and UCs, and we've said to these students, go to community colleges for your first 2 years and then apply. And so we're actually shoving more students to community colleges and not giving the resources to educate them. Well, I think, I did something very unusual when I chaired the joint budget committee between the Senate and the Assembly. No other budget committee chair has ever held a public hearing on the budget. And I did. And I had literally hundreds of community college students coming out, and teachers as well. And UC and CSU as well, but a lot of community college folks showed up. And a lot of students that were receiving Cal grants, and a lot of single mothers on CalWorks trying to make their lives better. And they came and testified, and even people that didn't testify brought 10, 15 people with them. I think personally showing up for rallies and protests and public hearings and making your voice heard and getting in people's faces. That is the most important thing, because people know you care and you're passionate about it. And making sure that the people we elect statewide have the same sort of commitment to the community college system. I think people that maybe haven't experienced it and didn't come from the socioeconomic backgrounds that I did and other students that are lower income came from, they may not understand really the role of community colleges. So working with your associations again and making sure that people that are in the Capitol understand the importance of this and how the budget cuts are affecting you. One of the things that I've done is I've tried to meet with a lot of different key people around the state and find out, So I met recently with the presiding judge at the Sonoma County Superior Courts. How are the budget cuts affecting you? What's happening with your caseload? What's happening with your staff? I want to know the nuts and bolts of what's happening. And I think you going to the Capitol and talking to people about that is really important.
Just being the only representative that solely represents the community college system at the state level, how important a role or what could we do to greater support them at that? Because they are our only sole voice up there. How do you see their role? How do you see what they could improve? What could we do to help them?
Well, I mean, that's a challenge because everybody's competing against everybody else, and there's a lot of very moneyed interests there that speak with loud voices because they have a lot of money. And I just think, doing more of the same, having a presence there, making sure that you're meeting with people that don't necessarily agree with you. There was a funny story about a Republican who I won't name. He was an assembly member, and I think it was CTA started going to his district office, and he would hide from them. He had never been confronted, ever been confronted by people who were angry about the decisions he was making, and these were his own constituents. So, and I know there's more than one story like that. So I think really, getting the folks that from these people's districts, going in and personally talking to them, confronting them if they won't talk to you, and putting it in their face and saying, this is the reality. Because, it all comes down, again, to education. You got to educate these folks on what's at stake and what you're doing and why it's important and why they're making the wrong decisions.
I think we got time for about one more question. Petaluma, last call. Anyone in the room?
Somebody.
Well, I don't have a question, but I would like to thank you for participating in our forum today.
Very welcome.
And, more importantly, I'd like to thank you for all the work you've done for us in Sacramento.
I just